Hello, welcome to Towards a Christian role-playing game, and this is the final video about character creation, and this will be a fairly short one, basically wrapping up character creation, dealing with things like backgrounds, skills, and basically other things. So the first thing is background. Background can be as long or as short as the player wants. There are a few lines available on the back of the character sheet for them to fill in anything they're interested in, and obviously the mediator, the game master, can use this to connect the character to any kind of plot hooks or any kind of story that they want to, in most RPGs. One way, though, in which the players can link their characters to the story and also to help themselves mechanically is by using their background to help determine some skills. So at any time during the game, the player has the ability to choose up to 3 skills that they can add an extra point to and use during the game. So these are not talents. These are not the same as the talents. These are actual specific skills that the player can pick from anything at any time during the game, including just before facing a trial. Each time the character is doing anything that relates to one of those skills, then they can add an additional point to their roll. However, once a skill has been chosen, it stays, it remains. So the player only has 3 skills that they can decide on during the game for their entire character. So they need to choose wisely which skills they're going to go with. So when choosing a skill during the game, the player should give a testimony. This means telling like a short story from their background to the group to explain how they managed to acquire that skill. So the story doesn't have to be long, but it should be consistent with their background in some way. So it can't be something like, oh, I grew up in a conservative Christian home and never got into any trouble, and that's how I became an expert safecracker. It's got to be consistent with their background. So this means the player needs to think about what kind of character they want to create and be consistent with how the character acts and what skills they may have in the story. Goals, allegiances, and flaws are additional character traits to include on the character sheet. A goal, firstly, is a driving force that motivates the character towards something. A player should add 1 point to any dice roll that the character makes in the story that relates to this goal. So some example goals might be things like the following. The next one is allegiances. For an allegiance, a player should choose another character and describe their relationship to them. This can be a player character, another player, or it can be an NPC that they know within their backstory. What does this mean, though, in terms of the story they're playing, in terms of the adventure? So players who have written the allegiance with another player's character in mind, or even an NPC, can add an additional point when they are assisting the other player that they mentioned in that way. So in the way that they have the allegiance to them and they're assisting the player in that way, then they can add a point to their roll because of that allegiance. So some example of allegiance might be things like the following, these sort of things. The last one in terms of character background are flaws. So flaws are problems that a character may have in the game, such as things like jealousy, anger, addiction, greed, things like that. So during the game, the players should -2 from any dice roll that relates to the flaw. This shows how the flaws will reduce the character's abilities. However, failing a roll because of a flaw will generate 2 points of experience for that talent area rather than just the normal one. So players may be more motivated to remember their flaws, since failing that roll will generate 2 experience points, which can be used later in the same way as normal ones. Now, remember that flaws tend to make the most interesting characters. Players can think about what their flaws look like in terms of role-playing during the story. What can they do to overcome them? What sort of things can they incorporate into their characters? And some examples of flaws are things like these. At the bottom of the second page is a section for any tools or equipment that the character may pick up along the way. So each piece of equipment that the character picks up allows the player to add a certain dice to their roll when they're rolling to use that tool for certain things. For example, using a gun will add a D10 to an attack. So you're actually adding an enormous number of points to your attack when you're using the gun. Basically, this means that when you're attacking someone with a gun, being shot in this game is very dangerous because it reduces a whole bunch of points from your health. The dice listed against the equipment is a guide only, and they are contingent on whether the item is used in the way that it was designed to be. So, for example, shooting someone with a gun will add a D10 to an attack, but trying to knock someone out with it may only add a D6. So it depends on how you use it, whether you're using it properly. This is also where the D4 comes into play during the game, as some equipment will only add a D4 dice to it. One thing about equipment is that each character can only carry a maximum of 6 items on them at any time. Any more than that and they are overburdened. So characters need to distribute equipment between them and potentially leave things behind if they run out of space. The next thing is money. Each character starts with a certain amount of capital. This is given out at the beginning of the game by rolling a d20 and then multiplying that result by 10. The only exception is the patron. Because of their motivation of giving, they roll a d20 twice, then add those totals together, and then multiply that amount by 10 and take that as their starting capital. So for a normal roll, it might be 5. So you'd roll that, multiply by 10, you get $50 capital at the beginning. Or it might be 15, you get $150 capital. And then the patron rolls it twice, and they get double, essentially twice the amount. For a normal one-shot, each character will begin the adventure with their starting capital. But for a longer campaign-style adventure, the characters will need to earn money, generally by completing the tasks given to them, either as a result of their occupations they're doing or from freelance work that they will be asked to do. Depending on the situation, some of the issues that they may face may be centered around money and what they're asked to do in order to earn it. So that's one thing that a plot point can come from. Finally, intervention. These are points that are given out at the mediator's discretion because of good role-playing, good character at the table, or working together to solve a problem. Things like that. Basically, like inspiration points in D&D. These can be exchanged with the mediator for something that can be decided at the beginning of the game. So, for example, to reroll any number of dice, or to have one automatic conditional success, or something else. That's essentially the rest of character creation. Next videos I'll talk about conflict, facing trials, getting things done, and any other aspects of the game. Thank you very much. If you're interested, hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you very much for watching.